welcome back to the FloTrack Podcast presented by Wonderful Pistachios at the On Athletics Hub here at the Penn Relays. I'm Ashley Tishins, joined here by my colleague Corey Mull. Oh my gosh, I feel like just so much craziness has happened over the past 2 days here at Penn Relays presented by Toyota. Yesterday provided us with a record-breaking day of action. It's now Saturday, our final day here at Franklin Field. Corey, how are you feeling about this right now?
I am the most excited about day 3 because this is where we get the onslaught of just everything attacking us one by one by one. Maybe 10 minutes ago, we had an insane race in the high school 4x4 heats with Bullis School.
Yeah, like, goodness gracious, if any of you guys were watching that, I mean, we were out here sitting here preparing for this podcast, watching Bullis School in that 4x4 prelim. They fall on the first leg. Then Quincy Wilson on the anchor brings them back from 6th place all the way to first, 44-37, the fastest split ever in a 4x4 at the Penn Relays. Just, I'm already shaking right now because it's like, man, I was trying to prepare for this podcast, and then I was trying to clip and watch it all, and just like, what are your reactions to that?
Well, this is Team America, essentially, the greatest hope to beat a Jamaican team here at the Penn Relays, falling. Their hopes are dwindling in a matter of like 30 seconds, and who comes to the rescue but the greatest U.S. hope coming up in the high school ranks? It's Quincy Wilson. You can't make that story up.
No. You really can't make that up, and I know that is just some of the exciting action and that's coming today, and it could preview a very big final to kind of end things out here at the Penn Relays. But let's go ahead and go to the show. Today we're gonna recap the best moments from yesterday and look forward to today's action, and then we'll finish with an interview with OAC's Joe Klecker, which I know we're all really looking forward to here. So first off, top moments of Friday's action at the Penn Relays. There were so many records broken, both on the college side and the high school side. There was just so much going on. Corey, what were some of your favorite moments you think from yesterday?
Well, I think for starters, maybe the biggest one was the NCAA record by the Harvard women in the distance medley relay. It was a matchup of two teams at the end of the race with the best mile runners going up against each other. Providence and Harvard going up 1v1 there, and it ended with an epic close. And I think that's what you expect from the Penn Relays, getting those types of matchups and environments, pulling away in the final moments here. And I think we just have to talk about Harvard's NCAA record of 10:37.55, breaking Villanova's mark from 1988. That's an insane record that you break here at the Penn Relays. And considering Harvard ran 10:52 indoors, that's quite the improvement too.
That is a huge improvement there. Almost, 20 seconds there on that improvement. Again, I know you mentioned the anchor. It came down to that anchor, and you had two of the best milers in the NCAA, dueling it out. You have Maya Romson, who was the indoor champion this past year, 4:21 on the 1,600-meter anchor. And, I mean, she was going up against Kimberly May of Providence, who she herself had set an all-time, among the top 10 all-time, marks indoors for the NCAA this year in the mile. So, I mean, they were battling together, but it was Maya who was able to come out on top at the end.
Yeah, and I think when you look at the overall race, it came down to lineup positions, tactics a little bit too. Harvard's 800-meter leg, Victoria Bossang, had a remarkable, I think, leg there for a 2:02 split, getting Harvard back into the mix. Virginia talked about a little bit. I mean, they ran really well, but when it came down to the two best milers, you can't ask for anything else.
That's right. Well, so obviously that was a very exciting way to start the DMRs with the women's. Let's talk about the college men's distance medley relay for a second. We saw on the women's side, it came down to a battle between two there at the end. Everyone was in this race on the men's side here in the DMR. Corey, break down what exactly happened here. Especially, I feel like it came down to that final lap to determine the winner here to win the Penn Relays wheel. Yeah,
and we've seen this at the Penn Relays over the last several years where, you have your opening legs, the 12, the 4, the 8, and, things toggle, up and down a little bit. But by the time we got to that 1,600-meter leg, things kind of coalesced and they equalized, and everybody got just back into the mix. And when you look at who was in the field, Villanova had won it 25 times. Hard to bet against the Wildcats because they've been here before and they've done it so many times. So you had Liam Murphy kind of right there in the midst. And I think ultimately, he felt the best. Mm-hmm. He attacked it the best. I mean, they made a move on Georgetown late, and I think, it came down to Murphy's move to win the race.
I know I was out there on the track when all this was happening, and I was trying to take in, especially that last lap. There was a lot of emotions going on. All these teams, because again, like you had Villanova in it, you had Georgetown in it as well. For a while, Georgetown there going with like 200 to go. They were in the lead, but it was Murphy who had more in the tank at the end. And you know, when Murphy crossed the line there, just so much was going on, so much chaos. Villanova ran out. Some of the other teams were just kind of, I feel like, in shock that they lost. You know, but I think that's what makes the DMR really special, actually, at the Penn Relays. If you look back, I feel like especially on the collegiate men's side, there's a history of it coming down to that final anchor. I think back in the day, I believe Edward Cheswick was on one of those relays back in the day. That was so crazy, so much back and forth at the Penn Relays. And again, kudos to Villanova.
What do we think? Do we prefer a wild last 400 kick for all the marbles, or do we prefer the breakout and maybe getting the record time? Because ultimately, like, all these teams, ran tactically in a sense, and they all trusted when it came down to that 400 that they had, they had everything that they could throw at it to win. We had Gary Martin in that final 400. He was in the mix too. I mean, it's hard to say, but what would you rather prefer?
That's such a tough question. I feel like for me, I like the honest races, because it's really when you see these teams going all out and when they're battling at like their top at their best. I feel like that can be really exciting. But I can see why, it keeps it entertaining when there's so many teams in the mix. You don't really know. You can't really predict who's going to win. It's just going to come down who has the most at the very end.
Yeah.
What about you?
To be quite honest, I think I prefer the way it has gone as of recently. Because, I think a lot of races come down to, who's got the best speed, right? I think just when you look at professional running right now and even in the college ranks, you watch these distance races, they're jogging seemingly for a long time before they just start to reel it in and wind up. So, I mean, this is a tried and true and proven method, and just another example of getting it done here.
Well, I know those GMRs had us really excited yesterday. Let's take it for a second to what I personally think was my favorite race of the day yesterday, the Girls Championship of America 4x400 meter final. We saw some records go down. It was neck and neck to the end of the line there. Corey, break down exactly what happened here, because I feel like this was one of the hyped up matchups between the Jamaica high schools versus Bullis School.
Yeah, and again, it was the U.S.'s top hope with Bullis versus Jamaica's top team. Bullis, with their opening leg, I think they were facing a little bit of a deficit early on, but they put a runner out there that got the job done, and she handed off to Sydney Sutton. And I think once Sydney got the stick, things started to change a little bit, and it became a 3-team race with Edwin Allen and Heidel and Bullis. And that's when things just started to ramp up entirely. Edwin Allen dropped the baton, late, and then it became Heidel and Bullis. And the last two runners for Bullis just made some really strong tactical moves to keep them in the race. And then, at the end, we got to talk about the curve.
We have to talk about that. You were up there commentating. What did you see when you were watching from your perspective?
I did not see up close and personal what you saw, which was a lot of just physicalness when they were rounding the curve. I mean, it all happened so fast, but Bullis tried to make a move on Heidel, and they went around them, and then Heidel kind of got in between them, I would say. Maybe a little bit of hand action.
A little bit of shoving. I know you were up top. I was right there literally on the turn. They were 2 feet in front of me.
Yeah.
I just see elbows start moving, I feel like it was, some back and forth, just two competitors getting just really close. I know Bullis kind of got into lane one a little bit there, so I think just jostling for position. But for those who say track is not a contact sport, this proves it wrong.
Well, I saw it all day. I mean, you see that all around the track, at starts, at closes, at finishes. I mean, it really, truly does take some physical, in nature to it. Like when you're running so close to one another, you're bound to get a heel. You're bound to get an arm. You're bound to get a shoulder. Like it's more physical than most people would realize.
That's for sure. But, nonetheless, physical there on the turn. The Jamaicans were on the turn there. I mean, it was roaring in that stadium, and it came down to that final 100, and Heidel just barely got it at the line. 3:34.78 for the win. But Bullis, I mean, there should be no hanging heads here. Obviously they got second here, but they lower their own U.S. high school national record to 3:35.17. What do you think this means for Bullis moving forward?
Well, you run to win, so I think they were disappointed that they did not win. But, yeah, the record stands, right? And you lower it with a team that has all the potential in the world to go at it again. I think ultimately Bullis has been that team that can chase after records, specifically in these sprint distances like the 4x4. So I think it's just another example of Bullis, putting in the work and getting it done.
Well, we saw all that go down in that Championship of America Girls 4x4 on the high school side. Let's switch back to college for a minute. I think this was one of the final really big Championship of America races yesterday, the sprint medley relay on the collegiate side. And I think we got the soundbite of the day yesterday from this race. You had TCU men winning this title there in the SMR there for the collegiate side. 3:18.71. They closed down on Penn State. Tell me about this race, too, because, I mentioned that afterwards they were really pumped, so maybe explain a little bit to what happened there.
Well, TCU was trailing going into the anchor leg by about 2 seconds. Penn State had run well after Arizona State actually dropped the baton on their first exchange. So Arizona State, which probably was the favorite, was out of it immediately. And then Penn State, behind Sheckton Trior in the 400 leg, had that lead going into the final 800. And it was up to that guy to keep, the lead and take the win for Penn State. But Ryan Martin, out of nowhere, he had run 149 at the Texas Relays, 148 open, brings out a 147 split to make up 2 seconds and take the win. And I think this is the biggest moment he's ever had in his life because, I think he's still improving, but he hasn't really been in the picture with the Big 12 or NCAA. So you win a big race like this at the Penn Relays, it matters. And so when he went into the interview afterwards, you heard everything.
Oh, yeah, heard everything. He was talking with our own Olivia Ekpene there on the ground just like right afterwards. Never seen so much energy from someone like that before. Here's the quote. Olivia asked him what was going through his mind there over his final leg, and he said to himself, "Man, I got this. He can't beat me. I'm a dog." That's exactly what he said. And then he said, "This is a whole group of dogs. This is what TCU is all about." So the Horned Frogs channeled their inner dogs.
Absolutely. Ryan actually is from Rochester, New York. So I think a little bit of that was understanding what Penn Relays meant within this northeastern region, and he brought that to the table as he was racing for TCU.
Well, that was definitely one of the highlight moments from yesterday. I know we just went over so many big things from yesterday, but we have even more to talk about for today. Again, the final day here at the Penn Relays. We have a lot of events to watch, so we'll break down some of our favorite ones that we're looking forward to. Big Olympic Development Day for the elite fields there, and huge high school relays on tap. So let's go ahead and dive into it, beginning with the Olympic Development Women's 1500. That's going to go off at 2:03 p.m. Eastern, and we have some heavy hitters here. You have Sage Hurdle Klecker, who me and Olivia spoke to yesterday on this podcast. You have Nia Akins and Toya Gould, Marta Penfreitas. A lot of players here, especially some that, they usually specialize in that 800, and so now they're moving up to the 1500.
Yeah, and Sage told you yesterday that, hey, my coach said we're going to run the 1500, and then that's the only one you're running on the season, right?
Yep.
So you got to go up to come down for a lot of these women. Akins, too, I'm assuming that's kind of the same, layout there as well, Natalia Gould. But in the 1500 meters, Klecker's run 4:01 for 1500 meters. She comes in here with a really good PR. And I think she has the capability to kind of take this race out and to win it because she's raced it before. Right? Obviously, 800 is her strength, but you got to be able to kind of go up in distance sometimes too.
For sure, and you got to think too, like there's a reason to this, right? Running up to then be able to run down, it tests your endurance, right? So then it almost, I feel like in my mind, it's like, okay, you run that 15, it makes it a little bit easier to drop back down and then run an 800.
Yeah. And with Sage, she broke 2 minutes for the first time at the Penn Relays 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. What if she chased after 4 here and maybe made another run at a big time? This is a great place for her because she is a New Yorker, as we talked about yesterday on the podcast. But also one to watch out for is Helen Schlottenhoven, 4:01 PR. She was 5th at the trials in 2021 at the 1500 meters. I think she's certainly a name to watch, and Freitas as well. I mean, it's an Olympic development field, the best going at it. So anything could happen.
That's for sure. Anything could happen again. Lots of heavy hitters in that race. Let's take it to the men's side for a second. I think one event we're all having our eyes on is going to be the Olympic Development Men's Mile. That's going to go off just after that women's 1500 at 2:10 p.m. Eastern. We talked to Yard Nagoose yesterday. He's going to be opening up his outdoor season here in this event. You also have Ollie Hoare, Eric Holt, and Jordy Beamish is going to be pacing these gentlemen as they round the track at Penn Relays. Big race here. Again, another race with heavy hitters. And again, this is a huge year. You're trying to get your feet under the ground at a cool environment like the Penn Relays. What do you think these gentlemen are going to be eyeing here in this race?
Well, I mean, I think it's still the build-up period for all of them, kind of, and they all have aspirations, heading into an important Olympic cycle here. Ollie Hoare, really great story. He told you on the podcast yesterday, but that he was healthy for the first time. I mean, in November he couldn't even walk from a sports hernia, so he's back to health, and he's had 2 races under his belt before he comes into the Penn Relays here. And so the Australian 1,500-meter record holder has a really big opportunity to go up against, an OAC guy, right? And the Goose, we all know the goose is loose, as they say.
Yes.
And he probably, is the favorite here if we look on times alone. But we all know that, the mile in racing in general is all about tactics. So I'm curious to see how they will manage it together. Their teammates, they got their teammate pacing the race. How's this going to factor in for both of them?
Agreed. I think those are all great points. Again, I feel like to go back to Yard a little bit, like the last time we saw him run that outdoor mile, it was, for me, it's like one of the most epic races I've ever seen. He ran the mile against Jakob Ingebrigtsen at the Prefontaine Classic in September, 3:43.97. Broke the American record that had been held for Alan Webb for, I think, 16 years. So we know what he's capable of. But again, it's the early season, and it's going to really just depend on how they, like you said, play off of each other, use tactics to grab this win.
So, and Yared said he's not an aggressive racer.
True, yes.
So, miles tend to go out pretty aggressively in these scenarios. So, how will he attack it early on? I think, he's the guy who builds into his race and really finishes hard. That's why we saw him close, as you said, against Ingebrigtsen. But will anyone else sort of challenge him in a sense there? Eric Holt's a name that I kind of want to offer here. I think Eric Holt has a pretty good opportunity and a great resume bringing into the mile here. But ultimately, I think this is going to be one of the marquee races of today.
Well, you're definitely going to want to tune in for that one. Again, that's going to be at 2:10 p.m. Eastern. Let's shift to the sprints a little bit here for the Olympic development. The men's 400, I believe when we were previewing the Penn Relays on the FloTrack podcast, before we touched down here in Philly, I know I said that this was one of the races I was actually looking forward to most because there are just so many players in this field. You have guys like Ryan Willey, Bryce Deadman, Will London, Ja'Cory Patterson, who are all in that mix to be competing to make Team USA in the Olympics, in June. So having all these guys in the mix in the same race at Penn Relays, I think it's going to be a really good checkpoint for them to see where these guys are at this point in the season.
Yeah, and I was kind of amazed. I looked at the meet record for the 400 in the Penn Relays here.
What is it?
It's 46:09. From
46:09?
Quincy Hall from 2023. Huh. Yeah, I was surprised too. I would have thought it would have
been faster.
Yes, I agree. I would think it would be faster too, but that's what it says on paper here. But we got guys who are under 45 seconds overall. Deadman is an Olympic and world champion in the 4x4, right? He obviously comes in here probably with the best record on hand with a 44.22 from the Kip Keino Classic just recently. So in form as well. But Wiley, I think, is a big story because he last ran at the Penn Relays in 2019 when he was with Bullis. So he's coming back after a long career with Florida and a runner-up finish in the 400 at NCAA's last year. And he's run 44.25. So I think he's the up-and-comer that can kind of give Deadman a challenge.
I agree with you there, right? Deadman, we just saw him run, like you said, 44.41, I believe, at the Continental Tour Nairobi. So he's in form. However, that's he did that just a week ago. So it'll be interesting to see how he comes here to Philly. Ryan Wiley, he's already gone 45.79 in the 400. He clocked that at Tom Jones. I want to talk about Will London for a second. He already opened up his season at the Michael Johnson Track Classic in the 400, 47.09, but I definitely feel like in a competitive field like this, he can chop some seconds off of that time there. And then when I mentioned to Ja'Cory Patterson, I saw him run at the USA Indoor Championships. He looked really strong there, made Team USA to go to World Indoors and competed there. So again, I think when you have all those guys on the U.S. side factoring in, it'll be interesting. But they aren't the only guys in this field.
No, no, we have Javon Francis of Jamaica. He's run a PR of 44:50 but that was back from 2015. Recently, he's coming off a 45:10 from Nashville. So I think overall it should be a really competitive field, and I think they should go after the meet record here.
I think so. I feel like that's a solid goal that they could go after, especially when you have people with 44-second speed in this race.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, we're going to break down one more Olympic development field that we're really looking forward to here on this final day. We got to talk about the women's 800 because you have some Penn Relays legends in this race. Ajay Wilson, she competes here, I feel like, almost every year. She won the 600 last year, now running her specialty 800 here at the Penn Relays. But she's not the only one in this field. You have other athletes like Olivia Baker, Charlene Lipsey, just to name a few. What do you expect to go down in this women's 800?
Well, Ajay is, I think, a crowd favorite here from Philadelphia. She has a PR of 155.61, but it's not about PRs when you get on the line here. I think it's about just competing. And she has, made Franklin Field basically her track home.
Yep.
So I think she will be the star attraction here, and it really will be, the women to kind of work off that. I would be interested to see sort of tactically how they take this race out. And then, I think Ajay traditionally is a closer, right, in the final maybe 300 meters. So how will Baker perform, right? 5th at indoors recently.
Yep.
How can she kind of shake things up? Lipsey, same thing.
Again, it's going to be a matter of who comes out on top at the end. Again, I think of someone like Ajay Wilson and just the 800 meters in general. I feel like we've seen her dominate this event for so long, but now I feel like we're heading into a year, again, Olympic year, where this event's a little more crowded now.
Very crowded, yeah.
And I feel like, getting some of these races underneath your belt and performing well is that confidence boost that you're going to need to then step onto the line at the Olympic trials against other heavy hitters like, Athingmo, Nia Akins, like all these different athletes. And, you use that as confidence going into those races.
How crowded is the 800 right now?
I think I've said this before, too. It's so crowded, right?
Yeah.
I can think of probably 5-6 people that could all make that team right now.
Just off the top of your head, too.
Yeah, I know. I think of, again, Athingmo, obviously, Ajay Wilson, Sage Klecker. Nia Akins, she's the defending U.S. champion as well. There's just so many athletes.
Not even talking about Michaela Rose of the NCAA.
Exactly.
So, the 800 is a stacked lineup of women, in the U.S. right now. It's going to be tough. But it makes a lot of sense to come here and start to turn the gears, tighten up a little bit, as we have these last 2 months of preparation kind of really becoming important for that cycle.
We're going to have our eyes on that 800, but to close out this show, I think we have to quickly, I know we mentioned it to begin, we have to quickly preview what I think is the event, the race of the event.
Yeah.
The championship boys 4x4 100-meter relay. We've been hyping it up as almost like Jamaica versus Bullis School. We already mentioned what we saw Quincy do in this prelim here just, 30 minutes ago. Corey, what do we all have to be prepared for to watch later?
I think this kind of race brings you back to earth. I think if you like track and field, obviously there's high school here, there's college here, there's pro here. But these kinds of races, I think, stick with you for a long time because it's, the best in the region and possibly in the nation running in a high-stakes race against in front of what, like 30,000 people, maybe 20,000 people. You don't get that anywhere else.
No.
That is a scenario that just does not exist in this sport. So that's why it becomes special, because you have high schoolers doing it, and there's a lot of care from fans who want to watch these races. And I think it's that environment around that makes this race special, regardless of what happens, whether Bullis wins or Jamaica College or Kingston College, anything like that. I think it's the environment that makes these moments that special.
Agreed. I would agree. I mean, we saw it yesterday in the girls 4x4 final, right? Like the roar of that crowd. I feel like there's nothing that compares to it. I can't even think of anything that compares to it as, someone just spectating and watching and working an event. And I think that's just going to make this event, this is kind of the last Championship America race. I think it's going to make that even more memorable here to close out the Penn Relays.
Yeah. The only question left is, will Bull School pull it off? Will they beat Kingston College? Will they beat Jamaica College?
It's such a tough question. I don't know. Again, we just saw Quincy pull off some heroics here, 44-37 on that anchor split to take the team from 6th to 1st just to qualify out of the prelims.
Yeah.
They clocked 3:14 as a team. Now you got to recover. I think about that too. Obviously, I think that event kicks off much later, around 5:30 p.m., I believe.
Yeah, I believe, 5:20, something like that.
In your mind, is that enough time to now recover, bounce back, and throw it to something that even more special? Can I top that?
It doesn't matter. You have to be ready. It doesn't matter if you're recovered or not. The race is then. You have to be ready to go. And I think this is a legend-building moment for Quincy Wilson and Bullis School. This is, how you start to sort of build the legacy, going forward. He's only a high school sophomore. That team, most of them are coming back.
Yep.
So you can build on this. So I really think they have a great opportunity. And we talked about it yesterday together. The amount of fandom that is approaching Quincy everywhere he goes is unreal.
It's crazy. I witnessed this myself the other day because I got to chat with him in a little cool down chat that we did, and we were out here in this warm-up area, and I was trying to grab him to, we were going to go shoot our little video. And the amount of kids that just came up to him asking for pictures.
Yeah.
I mean, he would walk 5 feet and then, hey, can I take a picture? Then I asked him, I'm like, have you gotten used to this yet? Is this weird for you? And he's like, oh, yeah, it's definitely kind of weird sometimes. But, he loves interacting with his, fans and peers too. But it's wild to me. 16 years old.
He's part of the Penn Relays attractions this year, and I think he will be over the next couple of years too.
And for good reason as well. Corey, I know you and myself and Olivia, who she's not here with us, I know we really enjoyed getting to chat with all y'all this week on the FloTrack Podcast from the On Athletics Hub.
Absolutely. It's been a ball. It's been a ball.
We appreciate you guys for joining us all week. This ends the Penn Relays portion of this show. Make sure you join us in a few moments because we are going to have a special interview with OAC's Joe Klecker. Welcome back to the FloTrack Podcast, presented by Wonderful Pistachios here at the On Athletics Hub at the Penn Relays. It is Saturday, the final day, and we are joined here with a very special guest. So let's welcome Joe Klecker to the podcast. He is OAC Global's first member, a Colorado alum and a Minnesota native who was the U.S. Outdoor Championship runner-up last year in the 10K, 5th fastest American at 3K all-time indoors, 4th best American at the 5K distance in history, PR of 12:54.99 2023. We could go on and on, but Joe, thanks again for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, Joe. So first off, how's it going so far? I know if you're looking at the outdoor and indoor season, you began in January in Boston, and now we're in April. We're approaching the trials even more. What's your outlook so far over, these past few months?
Yeah, so I ran the 10,000 a few weeks ago. Was going for the Olympic standard there, and I just missed it. But I had a pretty good race with all things considered. I was dealing with a little bit of an injury going into it, and also now out of it. I knew I was going to have to rest up a bit afterwards. So, yeah, had a good race there, and I did kind of what I needed to do to hopefully give myself a shot in June to make the Olympic team. And now we're just, getting healthy and building the training back up and looking forward. We have about 8 or 9 weeks now until the Olympic trials, 10,000.
How do you prepare yourself, as you build into those, very important next 2 months? Is it mostly it's a mental build up for you? Is it all physical? What's kind of the most important facets to it?
Yeah, I would say that for me, it's just focusing in on every day and doing what I can and doing what I need to do. I think that I'm someone, I've made 3 teams in a row now that I know what it's going to take on the day to make those teams. And so I'm not one that needs to really think about the race too much right now. I think that I know if I can just take care of every single day, get healthy, keep my fitness improving, I'll show up and have a shot to make the Olympic team, and that's really all you can ask for.
I think we got to give a shout out to just OAC as a, in general here, just an incredible group right now. I know we've all seen the success they've had on the track and the roads over the past, year or two. What has the impact of this team been on you as you, during your build-up and, getting ready and your performance as well?
Yeah, I mean, just seeing how well everyone's doing, it gives you a lot of confidence in the training that you're doing, but also now me dealing with a little bit of an injury and coming back, seeing Ollie's comeback has been really kind of an inspiration. I mean, it's easy when you're doing well and you're running well, but when you have to deal with a little setback, I think you can lose some confidence. And so to see that people on the team have come back from these setbacks and, been back, Ollie's running amazing. He's going to do well today. That's kind of a big aspect of how the team can really inspire you. But yeah, seeing people like Yard who are just crushing it week in, week out, like Jordy crushing it, like that's obviously really fun to see, and that like gives you a lot of confidence. But I think that seeing, some of these people who are coming back from injury can be even more inspirational, when you're dealing with similar things.
Yeah, I think, your group of guys together are really close. I mean, the podcast is a big thing for all of you. You're on it quite often. I mean, what's that been like for you too?
Yeah, no, it's been fun. I think that I actually don't listen to the podcast, and so usually I only hear about it like through other people. But I've been fortunate to be there. I think I've been on the podcast as a guest more than anyone, and so that's been fun. But yeah, they love it. I mean, they have so much fun with it, and I think that it's just been a great outlet for our team and a great way for people to kind of see the ins and outs of what our lives are like as professional runners, and especially for Ollie, George, Morgan, who are from the other side of the world. I think it's a way that the fans down there can kind of keep up with them.
Yeah. The state of distance running right now is kind of crazy. You mentioned your 10K at the 10. You ran 27:07. The year before you ran 27:07, and that ended up being the second fastest time in the U.S. that year. Mm-hmm. Today, it's the fifth fastest in the U.S. I mean, obviously, guys kind of insert themselves. But what's changing with distance running in your mind?
Yeah, I mean, I think that obviously the standards to qualify for the Olympics and Worlds have gotten a lot faster over the years, and so people just rise to the occasion. I think it's hard to say, like, if the runners now are necessarily better than the runners 10 years ago just because they're faster. I think that the times are the times, but when it comes to race day, those aren't always so important. I think when I made the team in Tokyo, I was the 7th fastest time going in, and obviously I ended up finishing 3rd and qualifying for the Olympics. And so I think that, the standards have pushed the boundaries of times to a new level, but I don't know if it's necessarily caused people to be better racers than they were, a decade ago.
Now we're here, at the Penn Relays. I know we were chatting with you before, and you said that there's, you were here last year in the mile, part of the 4x mile in 2022. You kind of said that, like, you haven't seen, an environment like this for, that sort of high school, college, pro sort of event. Like, what would you say, your experience has been like here at Penn Relays, both competing and now here you're spectating as well? Yeah,
so we never ran here in college. Last year I did the mile here during prime time, and we had, that's probably one of the bigger crowds I've ever run in front of, and so that was fun. I think that in the U.S., we don't have many track meets where you're really potentially filling a stadium. It's something you get over in Europe quite a bit, and so for people who are running here, I think that it's a great experience and something that hopefully we can grow across the U.S., but I think that it's just cool to be able to run in front of a big crowd. I think track so often is just people following results or, small little meets that happen, all over the country. But Penn Relays is certainly like everyone flocks here, good crowds that know the sport, which is valuable. It's just a great atmosphere.
And each to their own, too, right? The meets like the 10 are really cool because they're in that small environment, but they produce epic results, too. It's like you have these two different like wavelengths, but they're all equally important too, right?
Yeah, no, I agree. They like races like the 10 produce great results, but I think there's a reason that those races don't produce huge crowds. I think that races like today are going to be so exciting, and that's why people come to watch. And so, I think that meets need to take note of what's exciting and what draws crowds, and Penn Relays has obviously done that.
So I have a throwback question for you. Looking at your 5K PR 12:54 from 2023, obviously you're now in the record books as one of the best Americans ever. But at Hopkins in 2009, we have one of the first cross-country races that you ran, 1942, when you were a high schooler. Do you ever look back and just sort of reflect on like where you've come?
Yeah, certainly. I think that times I'm running now are times that I never thought I'd be able to run. But at the same time, when I ran that 1942, I had kind of a similar mindset. I was just competing against the best people that were my age, and that's kind of how it went all through high school, all through college, and then eventually now, that's turned to competing against the best in the world. And so when I look at that, 7th grade, 1942 5K, like that was something I was very proud of at the time, but your goals just grow over time.
You've been described as someone as having more of like a meticulous approach, I would say. Can you break that down? Like what to you, when you have that type of approach, like how does that help you manifest the results you're looking for on the track in training, just all of that?
Yeah, I think that I'm someone who trusts in my own ability a lot on race day. I don't need to really think about that too much, and so that meticulous approach is just day in and day out, knowing that I need to be healthy, I need to get as fit as I can be, and on the race day, I just really trust my ability to race to that potential. I don't need to really think too much about the race day.
You come from a runner's family. Both your mother and your father were really, really successful. Your mother, Janice, 1992 U.S. Olympic trials winner in the marathon, competed in the Summer Olympics. Your father, Barney, won Twin Cities Marathon before. Mother's Day is coming up, too, by the way. You have something planned for Janice?
Yeah, probably send some flowers usually.
I gotcha. Yeah, I got to look into that, too, for mine. So what's it been like for you to carry on some of your family tradition?
Yeah, it's been huge. I mean, it's really special. Like when I made the Olympics, I think me and my mom were the only second mother-son U.S. Olympians on the track. And so that's just like a special thing, that bond that we have. But then also with my dad, like he was a great runner in his era, but he was someone who was working 3 jobs during that time. And so I think that he looks back at a lot of his running career and, he sees that he had so much more to give, but he didn't have the opportunities that I have. And so I think that a lot of my running career I look at as a continuation of his, and so he likes to kind of live through what I'm doing, and that's another special bond that we have is, he'll come over to Europe and watch me race, and it's just like some of the best times of our lives that he's able to like, watch me run these times and be there with me, and, he always reflects on like, he thinks he, could have broken 4 minutes in the mile, and he thinks he could have done all these things, and I believe he could have, but he definitely just didn't have the opportunities that I have, so it really makes me like that much more like driven to be the best that I can be, because I know how much he sacrificed to give me these opportunities.
Now, yesterday, me and Olivia, who's not here with us, we had a chance to chat with Sage yesterday, and, we were doing a little bit of a deep dive in her social media and noticed that the first post she ever made on Instagram was of a cat. And so we did kind of a similar deep dive into your social media history, and we saw that you're also seem to be a fan of animal photos, posting those online, particularly the family dog. Has your Instagram evolved since then? Do you still love your animals? Like, tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think anyone who follows me knows that probably most of my content is my dogs. Unfortunately, I'm allergic to cats. Otherwise, we'd probably have a few cats. But yeah, no, my dogs are like a big part of my life. And whenever I travel, it's one of the hardest parts is being away from them. And so they're still a huge part of my life. And yeah, if you follow me on Instagram, you've probably seen them all, and maybe even can kind of get a understanding of their personalities through my posts.
Okay, what are their personalities then? I was going to say.
Yeah, they're very, very athletic dogs. They love frisbee, but they're pretty pretty moody and like very passive aggressive. So like in the mornings, like I'll be sitting having my coffee and they just sit by the front door because they want to go play frisbee, or like if I'm trying to take a nap in the afternoon, they'll just sit by the front door and do the same. And so they just are very passive aggressive in that way.
Yeah, I feel that. I got a dog too. I got cats too, so I definitely feel that. Other things that we saw, you used to be a sneakerhead, or you might still be a sneakerhead. What's it like, the sneaker collection?
Yeah, just growing up, me and my friends, we loved to buy and sell shoes. I started working a job at like a nursing home just so I could buy shoes, and it's ridiculous when I look back at how much money that I would spend on shoes, because now, I get shoes for free from On, and so it's really come full circle in that way. But I loved collecting shoes back in the day. That was kind of what was a big thing in my life through high school. Yeah.
Now you're a Minnesota native. You've said you love Minnesota sports. You were mentioning that you were watching the Timberwolves game in the NBA playoffs last night. Who's your favorite squad? Like, what's your favorite sport that you like to follow in Minnesota?
Yeah, definitely the Vikings. Growing up in my family, we never missed a game. Honestly, I probably haven't missed a Vikings game in 20 years. It's something that is just always a part of our family. But then any Minnesota sports team that's doing well. So right now, the Timberwolves are crushing it, and so I was up till probably almost 2 a.m. watching them last night. But
Can they win it? Do you think they can win it?
Any team has a chance. They're up 3-0 right now against the Suns, so we'll see.
Yeah, they're the next up.
Exactly, and I want to follow up on your Vikings note there. Okay, so you've been to so many games. Obviously, you're a track athlete, but if you were playing football, what position would you play?
Well, that's maybe not such a hard question to answer, because my brother was a Division I football player. He was a tight end, so he was 6'4", 250 pounds, but maybe I could put on a little more weight and also be a tight end.
All right, I like that. Okay. And we also have this note about you that you have a pizza oven. Big fan of pizza myself. What kind of oven do you have? What's your favorite style of pizza?
Yeah, so for my birthday, Sage got me a Uni pizza oven, which initially I wasn't that excited about because anytime we'd make homemade pizza, it never turned out great. But I'm a big into sourdough bread, and so I really started trying to make the best pizza I could. And yeah, I make kind of Neapolitan-style pizza in our pizza oven, and yeah, I love it. Like, we eat pizza probably 3 times a week.
Are you as serious about pizza as the coffee club guys are about coffee?
I would say. I mean, I'm very dialed in. Like, I've had them over for pizza. They love it, but I'm always like a perfectionist with it, and I'm always trying to improve like my pizza, and so that's been really fun. But yeah, no, I know Ollie just got a new espresso machine, and so I'm sure he's going to be the same way now with his espresso.
All right, to close out this interview here, I think we wanted to go into some more like rapid fire questions. If you're down for that, you ready?
Yeah, sounds good.
All right, so we'll throw you some questions here. All right, first off, what is your coffee of choice?
Since I'm with these Australians and New Zealanders, I always order a flat white. Yesterday, I got asked at the coffee shop if I was from Australia, which was nice, but
You put on an accent or no?
I didn't even have an accent just because I ordered a flat white. She thought I was maybe from Australia, but yeah, I always get a flat white.
Iced or hot? Like
Oh yeah, hot
always?
Yeah,
hot
yeah.
always? Okay, okay. We're sticking on coffee here. Do you grind your own beans, brew your own coffee? Like, what's your process? What's the coffee making process for you?
Yeah, so I think just about everyone on our team has a espresso machine, and so we all grind our own coffee. We're all making cappuccino, flat whites every morning. So that's kind of the process, but yeah.
Album of choice. Do you listen to music?
Yeah, I listen to a lot of music, pretty much everything. Big into any artist from Minnesota usually, and so I really like Atmosphere, if you know them, from Minnesota. Any album from them is great.
Okay. What's your biggest track ick?
That's a hard question. I don't know. Bad weather. Hate bad weather.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
I have one more question.
Go for it.
We've asked a lot of these high schoolers some of these before. Socks or no socks when racing?
Yeah, it depends. I think that in the 10K, I usually wear socks because a blister there, like 2K in, could really just ruin your race. In a 5K or under, though, I think that I don't think much about it, and I won't wear socks.
Watch or no watch?
In a race, never watch. No.
Split shorts or half tights? We'll end it there. Split shorts or half tights?
Always split shorts. Honestly, sometimes long shorts. At BU this year, I think I had shorts that are almost down to my knees.
Like basketball shorts?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Love it.
Well, Joe, thank you again for joining us today. I know me and Corey really enjoyed this.
Yeah.
And what a way to end the FloTrack Podcast here at the On Athletics Hub at Penn Relays. Again, thank you for being with us, and thanks to all the fans that were here watching. And I know we had a blast.
Yeah, it was such a great time to meet you and talk to you in person, so really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for joining us.